Hello, friends. I'm sure that many of you, when buying shoes, prefer not only style and fashion, but also comfort. After all, that's why we love one pair of shoes more than another. Even if they are less beautiful and stylish and a little worn out. I think many of you understand what I'm talking about. Everyone always has a favorite item, whether it's clothes, shoes, or accessories, that they never want to part with. And today, friends, I will tell you about a very famous, yet at the same time very controversial American shoe brand with the famous name, Crocs. Unusual, clumsy, bright, all these words boldly characterize Crocs in the modern market. Over its 20 years of existence, the company has experienced several serious crises, was almost bankrupt, but still managed to survive and even compete with world leaders. Despite all the obstacles, ups and downs, some pairs of Crocs brand shoes today cost at least $850. And most interestingly, they sell out in a few hours. So, what's the trick? What's the secret? That's what I'm going to tell you about today. The main, probably key, feature of the brand lies in its unique and bold design for our time. Comfort and, of course, important and useful health characteristics. But few people know that the well-known Crocs appeared almost by accident, thanks to the idea of three enthusiast friends, and just a couple of months later became the most sought-after footwear among the American population, who came up with the idea for these clumsy, very ambiguous clogs. When and how did they first appear on the market? And how did they manage to win a place on store shelves? And probably the main question, why are they so wildly popular not only with the general population, but also with global stars? And even politicians. The founders of the Crocs brand are three friends, souls devoted to yachting. Scott Siemens, Lyndon Duke Hansen, and George Bodeker Jr. Probably, many of us, while doing what we love, have noticed, let's say, certain inconveniences associated with it. And it doesn't matter what it is. Fishing, football, or cooking. There's always room for something new that could improve and make life easier not only for you, but possibly for millions of people around the world. And here people are divided into two groups. The first just complain about why no one has thought of this yet, while others take the idea and bring it to life. That's exactly what happened with our trio. When going on sea trips, they often faced one problem. They lacked the basics comfortable shoes. Topsiders were good for their purpose, but still not quite right, and they got wet very quickly. I think everyone knows what it's like to walk in wet shoes and, by the way, because of this, Scott often got sick. Going barefoot, for those familiar with sea trips, is also not an option. It's very dangerous. Regular flip-flops are very uncomfortable and slippery. So what to do? Give up your favorite hobby and abandon yachting? Of course not. Once, during a Caribbean sea trip, that same Scott Siemens appeared before his friends in the most standard rubber clogs, which hardly slipped on the deck and, on top of everything, didn't let water through. His footwear was custom-made from Croslite, a very light material made from synthetic foam resin, which at the time was produced by a Canadian company called Fin Projectile Inc. The man just spent a few evenings searching the internet and ordered himself such strange shoes. Regardless, his friends, after laughing a bit at Scott, decided to try these wonder clogs. And to their surprise, the rubber shoes turned out to be so practical that very evening, Lyndon and George wanted a pair for themselves. But why buy when you can make minor changes and make the same ones yourself? Moreover, if the three of them liked the shoes, there would be others who would also like them. That same evening on the yacht, the three friends began brainstorming their first ever business project, producing special shoes for yachting. First of all, Scott, Lyndon, and George, with joint efforts and savings, acquired the rights to the very material Scott's pair was made from. By the way, this won't be a garage startup story of poor boys, as prior to this, Bodeker owned several fast food restaurants in the Western US. Hansen was in computer equipment sales, and Siemens had already been running his own small company specializing in photographic equipment for over 10 years. But this doesn't make their achievement any less significant. After all, there are many rich businessmen, but far from all of them want to contribute to developing something new, create something that didn't exist on the market before, and, of course, make life easier for many people with their know-how. And it's hard to say the guys were rich. They were ordinary mid-level entrepreneurs, of whom there are millions today. And so, already having some sales skills and knowing the appetites of yachting enthusiasts, in 2002 the trio of friends released their first batch of shoes, consisting of only 200 pairs, which were made to order by the same Canadian company. The model was simply called the Beach, It was first presented at the International Boat Show in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But what was the men's surprise when all 200 pairs of shoes sold out in just a couple of hours? The first model of the clogs was complemented by a strap on the back for comfortable wear, and to prevent them from falling off. And its appearance strongly resembled a crocodile's snout, hence the name Crocs later appeared. The success after selling the first 200 pairs made the friends think about producing an even larger batch. Moreover, those who had already bought Crocs were calling nonstop and wanted to buy more shoes. And within a month, pre-orders were, for example, for 1,000 pairs of Crocs. Even in such a narrow market segment as yachting, a considerable number of potential buyers were found. Word of such comfortable clogs spread very quickly among enthusiasts, and the friends didn't even need advertising. As the founders later said, at the first stage, we didn't even plan to make something big out of this. And what kind of scale can we talk about looking at rubber clogs? Scott said with a smile. The only task we set for ourselves was to create a convenient and safe product, one that could make life a bit easier for lovers of the sea and sails. But without expecting it themselves, the guys made a breakthrough. Demand for the product was colossal, sales volumes grew every day. Therefore, in that same 2002, the trio founded the company and began to focus seriously on shoe manufacturing. George Bodeker became the director of the company, which then consisted of only 8 people. The brand of comfortable clogs with a very attractive price of just $30 quickly gained popularity, not only among avid yachtsmen but also among those who are on their feet a lot. Over time, Crocs turned out to be the ideal footwear for chefs, medical workers, salespeople, and, of course, children. They were light yet very durable. They didn't rub feet at all, and were easily washed back to their original state even after 6 months of wear. The buyer got the feeling that they weren't bought at yesterday's sale. And indeed, it was a genius product. Buying Crocs once, you could forget about shoes for several years. So, in just the first 2 years, the clogs became not just shoes for yachtsmen, but also gradually hit the streets of cities with warm climates. The company's business was skyrocketing. As they say, demand creates supply, so without thinking twice, in 2004, Crocs bought that same Canadian company that produced the comfortable and light cross-light material. And by 2005, Crocs began positioning itself not only as shoes for yachtsmen but also as everyday footwear for the whole family. At the end of 2005, the company sold over 70,000 pairs of Crocs, but despite such success, ended up $1.2 million in the red. The reason was high material costs and low selling prices, as the main goal of the brand's creators was to make the product affordable for the average American. Competent marketing, advertising, word of mouth, and geographical expansion worked great. The next year, being a company from the American continent, which works perfectly in the mind of any consumer worldwide, Crocs quickly won the love of Europeans. In 2006, a huge warehouse was opened in Rotterdam, storing 1,000 models of the brand, which were then successfully delivered to any country in Europe. In less than 6 months, the geographical expansion positively impacted sales figures. The company finally turned a profit, and the total number of pairs sold reached an unreal 6 million. In 2006, 2 important events happened for the company. The brand's stock price rose from $7 to $21 per share, and co-founder George Bodeker Jr. left the board of directors and was arrested a couple of days later for attempting to kill his own son-in-law. The details of what happened are not reliably known. Shortly after, all charges were dropped, but the incident left its mark on Bodeker's life. And, of course, the creators of Crocs didn't stop at comfortable Sabbaths with a heel strap. They began exploring new horizons in the market more often. Besides their beloved shoes, ballet flats, boots, t-shirts, hats, and accessories appeared, from glasses, watches, and suitcases to small, unique figures gibbets created specifically for decorating Crocs. The Washington Post once even published a whole article about Crocs, stating that, quote, "Crocs have spread like a plague, and not just the real ones, but the fakes too." Well, as you understand, Crocs also learned to counterfeit. In 2007, the company sold 50 million pairs of Crocs per year, and profit grew to $168 million. Unfortunately, the next year started less successfully for the company. 2008 ended with a significant loss of $185 million, and the company was in debt for almost the same amount. The reason was the loss of consumer interest in the product, as the popularity of Crocs had reached its logical limit. and it was almost impossible to distinguish fakes from the original. It seemed the end was near, but it only took one breath of fresh air. So, in 2009, John McCarville, former president of Reebok International, became the CEO. It was he who managed to keep the company afloat by closing several production facilities, cutting staff, and abandoning several clothing and footwear lines. By the end of the year, the company was still at a loss, but not like in 2008. McCarville managed to reduce it from $160 million to $42 million. He left the company in 2010, and his place was taken by executive director John McCarville. He was one of the first personalities in the original Crocs team. Lyndon Hansen was vice president of customer service at the time, and Scott Siemens was involved in product development. McCarville conducted a complete diversification. In his opinion, increasing product choice is the best recipe for getting out of a crisis. And he was not mistaken. The brand began to develop and expand rapidly. Ballet flats and boots were brought back into use, the first line of heeled shoes was released, and sneakers appeared. McCarville personally monitored the layout of shoes in branded stores. Classic Sabbats were now placed at the back of the store, and all new models were on the front shelves. This was done so that the customer, entering the store, could immediately get acquainted with the new models and prefer them. It was thanks to the right approach to assortment and elementary merchandising in the network that the company's profit in 2010 was already $67 million, and just 1 year later $112 million. After 3 years of growth, sales fell again. The company faced another crisis, and this time there was almost no way out. The situation was saved by the investment company Blackstone, which bought a 13% stake in the Crocs brand in 2014. That same year, the CEO position was shared between Blackstone consultant and also a footwear industry specialist Greg Ribbett and Andrew Rees. During this period, key positions in the company were taken by people from Reebok, Sperry Topsider, Tommy Hilfiger, and Nike. So, under the close guidance of a professional team, the company began strategic changes. They reduced the number of employees and stores. The brand's foundation again became the classic Crocs models that once made the company famous. Online sales helped restore the company's former glory and, of course, increased its revenue many times over. It was online, on the official website, that you could buy genuine Crocs. This way, the market share of fake clogs was reduced several times. Crocs became the love of millions again. 3 years later, in 2017, the company's management fell entirely on the shoulders of Andrew Rees, and thanks to his hard work, dozens of fashion houses signed collaboration agreements. The lineup expands annually thanks to close cooperation with many representatives of the fashion industry. For example, the British brand Christopher Kane presented a collaboration with Crocs on the runway in its Spring-Summer 2017 collection, thereby adding this footwear to the wish lists of the most avid fashionistas worldwide. In 2018, the fashion house Balenciaga at Paris Fashion Week presented pink, lilac, yellow, and lime green Crocs models on a 10-centimeter platform decorated with branded gibbets. By the way, the price per pair was $850, and all models sold out in a few hours in the brand's online store. In 2019, Crocs ranked 7th in the ranking of the most popular footwear brands, proving once again, Crocs are not just comfort, Crocs are style. Can you imagine it? That's right, humble rubber clogs, invented on a whim, took their place in the world, becoming one of the best-selling pairs of shoes. Of course, it's worth noting the orthopedic properties of this footwear, which are a very important part of the success. After all, if you've ever worn real, I emphasize, real Crocs, you will surely understand what I'm talking about. But there is a lot of comfortable footwear, and Crocs are unique. So what makes them so popular? Yes, friends, most agree that it's their unique design what most distinguishes Crocs from other footwear, from famous brands. Who would have thought, back at the beginning of the journey in 2002, that these shoes would be worn by Google founder Sergey Brin, Facebook creator Mark Zuckerberg, actors Jack Nicholson, Natalie Portman, and many others. Even the wife of the former US president, Michelle Obama, was spotted by paparazzi more than once walking through a supermarket, and on the beach, specifically in Crocs. By the way, in February 2020, at New York Fashion Week, the most unusual Crocs were presented in an original KFC design, decorated with chicken-themed decor and a corresponding smell. The shoes are expected to go on sale in the summer, and the price per pair will be around $60. So what do we have in the end? in just 18 years, which is nothing for a big business, starting with 200 pairs and 8 employees. The company grew thousands of times, opening hundreds of stores and several production enterprises worldwide, while becoming one of the most recognizable brands. Was it luck? Or did Crocs really appear at the right time and in the right place? Probably. It will remain a mystery for millions of customers and thousands of new startups. Today, the Crocs brand's geography has expanded to 140 countries, and Crocs themselves are sold in 15,000 stores of its own retail network, and have even been featured on television and in Hollywood cinema. The inspiration that once visited George Bodeker on a yacht with friends, the desire to have these comfortable clogs, the acquaintance with Scott Siemens, and a number of other simple, at first glance, chance occurrences became the source of a new era of light, comfortable, and stylish footwear for millions of people around the world. This is what made the trio of yachting enthusiasts multimillionaires, who forever inscribed their names in history. As you can see, even simple and, perhaps at first glance, silly ideas have a chance of success. And it often happens that it is their seeming silliness and simplicity that is the key to success. And all just because others would simply consider them unworthy of attention. So next time you dismiss another idea in your head, think, maybe this is your $1,000,000 idea. Friends, write in the comments, have you ever had Crocs? If yes, what impressions can you share? It will be very interesting to know your opinion. Well, that's all for today. Rate the video if you liked it, and see you soon.